It began, like so many high-stakes crimes, with a whisper. Miami, a city where the night hums with both glamour and danger, had always been home to the kind of criminal empires that made the headlines. But in late July of 2019, a story unfolded that no one could have predicted, one that blurred the line between law enforcement and the lawless, leaving investigators scrambling for answers. At the center of it all was Marco Santini, a notorious figure in Miami's underworld. His mansion, perched on a secluded corner of Coral Gables, was more fortress than home. Security cameras lined the perimeter, armed guards patrolled 24/7, and his collection of luxury cars gleamed under the Floridian sun. To the outside world, Santini was untouchable, a man whose empire of narcotics, money laundering, and high-stakes gambling operated with a meticulous precision that rivaled the FBI itself. But one sweltering Thursday afternoon, a group of strangers arrived at the front gate. They were dressed in dark suits, wearing sunglasses, and carrying badges that looked official enough to convince anyone. Their black SUVs pulled up abruptly, engines cutting out as they blocked the driveway. Marco's guards, trained to scrutinize every visitor, hesitated, but these men moved with an air of authority that seemed almost impossible to question. They identified themselves as FBI, one neighbor later told investigators. They said there was an ongoing investigation, and that everyone needed to comply. Inside the mansion, Marco was in his study, reviewing a shipment schedule with one of his lieutenants. He felt a chill run down his spine, a premonition almost, but by the time he looked up, the intruders had already slipped inside, moving with unnerving precision. Detectives who later reconstructed the scene noted the careful execution of the operation. The men moved systematically, herding Marco, his family, and staff into the living room. One of the intruders held a phone, pretending to relay orders to headquarters, while another secured the perimeter, keeping an eye on the mansion's multiple exits. Investigators later described the scene as eerily similar to a federal raid. The way the intruders organized the occupants, the language they used, even their tactical maneuvers, all of it had been studied, probably obsessively, from real FBI procedure manuals and online surveillance footage of past raids. For 2 hours, the team ransacked the house. They opened safes hidden behind bookshelves, rifled through filing cabinets, and emptied drawers containing stacks of cash, gold bars, and jewelry. Surveillance cameras later revealed that the intruders worked with an efficiency that almost suggested they had been doing this for years. But no one knew them. No one had seen their faces. By the time the real FBI arrived, called in by Marco himself, whose bodyguards had finally realized something was wrong, the mansion was in shambles, and nearly $5 million in cash and valuables had vanished. The Miami-Dade police, alongside the FBI, were left piecing together fragments of what had happened. Forensic teams analyzed every inch of the mansion. Footprints, fingerprints, and even the pattern of discarded coffee cups were examined. But the intruders had anticipated this. They wore gloves, changed clothes inside vehicles, and even took their own trash with them. What baffled investigators most was the sheer audacity of the crime. Pretending to be federal agents wasn't new. There had been isolated cases before, but a full-scale, meticulously planned heist of a high-profile drug lord's mansion? That was unprecedented. It was organized, precise, and almost theatrical. Interviews with Santini and his inner circle painted a vivid picture of fear and disbelief. "I couldn't believe it," Marco told detectives. "I've survived raids, attacks, even cartel hits. But these guys, they moved like ghosts. Like they were part of the system itself." In the weeks that followed, law enforcement pored over video footage from surrounding homes, traffic cameras, and GPS data. Investigators began to piece together the possibility that this group had been watching Marco for months, noting guard shifts, entry points, and even studying social media to predict when his family would be home. They were methodical, calculated, and terrifyingly patient. The FBI, in a rare public statement, confirmed that their agents had not conducted any operation at Marco Santini's property that day. The implication was clear: someone had crossed the line, stepping into federal territory and executing a perfect imitation. As detectives dug deeper, they found a disturbing trail. The group had connections to local organized crime, former military personnel, and individuals with extensive knowledge of law enforcement protocols. Some had backgrounds in private security firms, while others had served as consultants for federal investigations. The mosaic of expertise was uncanny, creating a team capable of executing a federal-level raid without ever raising suspicion. Miami's criminal underworld, usually quick to silence loose lips, seemed stunned. Rumors swirled about who could have pulled off such a feat. Some whispered that it was a rival cartel looking to send a message, others suspected inside help, possibly corrupt officials feeding information to outsiders. But no definitive evidence emerged. The money was gone, the luxury goods vanished, and the culprits disappeared without leaving a trace. In the months that followed the raid, investigators uncovered small but telling leads. A former security contractor came forward anonymously, describing meetings where the team had meticulously rehearsed the mansion layout using virtual reality simulations and blueprints purchased online. They had tested every possible scenario: guard response, alarm systems, even Marco's unpredictable temper. Each member of the group had a role, and they executed it flawlessly. Detective Laura Mendoza, one of the lead officers on the case, later reflected on the audacity of the crime. "I've seen organized crime before, but never like this. They didn't just steal money. They stole the idea of authority. They weaponized trust in a way that shook everyone, law enforcement included." The investigation eventually led to a few arrests, low-level accomplices who had helped launder stolen cash through shell companies and offshore accounts. But the core team, the ones who had orchestrated the raid, remained elusive. Authorities suspected they had melted back into society, perhaps taking their loot abroad, waiting for the heat to die down before resurfacing. Interviews with financial analysts revealed the long-term impact of the heist. Marco Santini, despite his resources, suffered enormous losses. His empire, once untouchable, began to crumble under pressure from rivals and law enforcement scrutiny. Meanwhile, the audacity of the crime inspired imitators, with similar fake agent scams reported across the state, though none matched the sophistication of the Coral Gables raid. Psychologists who reviewed the case noted the unique psychology at play. The team had studied human behavior, authority, and fear, exploiting them to create compliance without overt violence. By mimicking the symbols of law enforcement, badges, SUVs, tactical language, they bypassed instinctual caution. The crime, in many ways, was a study in manipulation as much as theft. Years later, the Coral Gables raid remains a case study in law enforcement training. FBI agents and Miami-Dade officers use it as an example of how criminals can weaponize trust and procedure against those who assume compliance. It's taught in simulation exercises, where trainees must differentiate between real authority and the illusion of it. Marco Santini, now laying low, rarely speaks publicly. But in private circles, he reportedly warns newcomers to his network that the audacity of human ingenuity can be as dangerous as any bullet. They weren't just thieves, he told a confidant. They were actors, psychologists, and predators all rolled into one. And for 2 hours. They owned the FBI. The Miami Heist, as chilling as it was, left more than stolen millions in its wake. It left a question that haunts investigators and criminals alike: how far could someone go when they know exactly how to play the system? And sometimes, in the quiet corners of Coral Gables, when the sun sets and the mansions cast long shadows over the streets, locals swear they can still see black SUVs parked silently, windows dark, as if waiting for the next perfect moment to blur the line between law and lawlessness. Because in Miami, as in the rest of the world, the most dangerous crimes aren't always committed with guns or violence. Sometimes, the most terrifying acts are the ones where you trust the wrong people. And realize too late that they were never who they claimed to be.